Hi everyone, I want to do a quick demo for you of how to read a food label because I know that this is something a lot of people might not be doing, is actually looking at the food label but also looking through the ingredients list. And there are some easy things that you can do when you are comparing products in the grocery store to make sure you are getting the best one, because oftentimes marketing can be very misleading, and what you think might be the better alternative of the two isn't necessarily the case. So what I'm going to show you, I'm going to use this bag of granola that I have here. So this is something that I purchased, and the reason that I purchased this one compared to other granolas, when I compared and looked at the nutrition facts, the biggest thing that I look for with things like cereals and granolas and really in general is the amount of total carbohydrates. And I just want to say that there's no one thing on the ingredients list that you should be prioritizing. You don't necessarily need to prioritize calories or carbs or protein or fat or fiber. Everything is important, and it really is a big 10,000 foot view of what you're getting in the product. But most cereals and granolas and prepackaged things, they typically have added sugar, and that total carbohydrate number, if you look on the label, it's going to have total carbs, and then underneath of that is fiber and added sugar. So total carbohydrates takes everything into consideration. So that number is going to be a little bit higher if they do have, particularly if they've added sugar to the product. So you want to look at your carbohydrate number, but then also look at the ingredients list to see where sugar falls. If sugar is not in the top 3, then it's probably a better product than most alternatives. A lot of, especially products like cereals and stuff, sugar will likely be in the top 2. I've even seen it before as the first ingredient. So you definitely want to look on the ingredients list and know that it can be listed on there as a bunch of different things. It can be brown rice syrup, it could be honey, it could be agave, it could be any type of sweetener, fructose, high fructose corn syrup. So there are a lot of different names it can be hidden under, so just be aware of that. The fiber number that falls under the carbohydrates is usually the second thing that I look at, and that's because I think that fiber is really underrated. It's a very important nutrient. So 3 grams of fiber or more is what you want to look for. Serving size is very important to check out. So starting from the top here, this is the number that you would want to compare with your meal builder for sure, but also make sure that you are measuring these things out. So you want to make sure you're portioning, especially for things like granola, nuts and seeds, things that are a little bit higher in calories. Definitely measure out your serving size. The calorie number can be an indicator, obviously, of how many calories you're consuming, but everyone is different. So again, I wouldn't get too hung up on this number. Under types of fat, it's important to look at the difference between saturated fat or unsaturated fat. So saturated and trans fats that are listed, those are going to be the bad fats. So you want to have less saturated and less trans fat. If you were to compare, for example, 2 jars of, soup, and that is something, for an example, which one of them might have 7 grams of saturated fat and one of them might have 3. Again, you would want to look at the big picture, but that could just be one indicator for you of where you might want to steer towards the lower end of the product. Cholesterol, sodium is another big one. Sodium less than 400 milligrams on especially primarily frozen meals. So I know a lot of people turn to frozen meals for convenience. Less than 400 milligrams is a pretty good amount for sodium. In general, you do want to try to go as low as you can. On things like soups, again, no salt added is what you're looking for. A lot of times the low sodium even has more sodium than the no salt added. So you want to look for products that haven't added anything extra to what's already in the food naturally. We talked about carbs, and then of course protein. So you want to find a balance with the protein. It's good to get some protein, but obviously not every single food is going to be a protein food. So you would just want to make sure if you're buying, for example, this granola's got 3 grams of protein. I would know that, I would want to have closer to 20 or 30 grams at a meal. So I would want to pair this with a high protein Greek yogurt or have some eggs or something like that on the side. So let me know if that all makes sense. I know that nutrition labels can be kind of confusing. I hope that that helped to kind of clarify. Remember, we want to look big picture. We want to try to compare products based on what is relevant. So like I said, granolas and stuff, carbohydrates are very, very relevant. If it's a canned item, you might want to look at saturated fat and sodium. Don't get too hung up on the calories, and definitely check out the ingredients list as well. Let me know if you have questions. Again, my email is olivia.brant, BRANT, @teamexos.com. I would love to talk more about this topic, so send me an email and let me know what questions you have.